Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about improv piecing. And you can see behind me, I'm going to slowly pan across my design wall. And I thought I would do a little section starting this week called What's on My Design Wall? And you can see improv piecing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what am I doing here? Well, it does look a little bit like organized chaos, doesn't it? But I have a row quilt idea. There's a theme on each row that I'm working toward. And I will explain more of that as we go. Don't want to reveal too much because this is at the infant brainstorming idea phase. But as you can tell, I have an odd shape on all of these blocks. They are 7.5 inches wide by 6.5 inches tall. And I decided to do a challenge that I found someone doing on Instagram. And it's 3 fabrics for 30 minutes. Well, roughly 30 days, but I'm way more than 30 days. And quite honestly, I need 30 blocks or more to make this a row quilt. So let me show you the blocks up close, and I thought I would do a little demo at the end about improv piecing. Here is the first row. It is definitely fire inspired. Second row, I need more water. This is a transition to the earth. And this is another row that I don't know, I want to call it earth. This is definitely the horizon line of sky. And this row is the lighter color sky. Now, these are just ideas, and they certainly could have lines or spaces, and some of these blocks may not even make the final cut. But that's where I'm at. But let me show you an example with a couple of ideas on how to do some improv piecing. This block was an exercise in just trying to figure out how to do something with all these reds. I started out with simpler ideas of taking just strips, cutting them on angles, and assembling the row. I did the same thing here, and then once it was done, I cut across and did a very simple little inset of a super skinny strip. I mean super skinny strip. Then I decided to start working on curves, of taking strips and then cutting curves into the pieces and then just sewing another strip on the curve. Here's some that had an inset already. But where you get into trouble is sometimes if you do a real tight curve, you can't do it with a straight piece. That will be a lesson for another day. But for doing super gentle curves, you can also get an illusion of a sharp curve. If you take a stripe that naturally warps as you go around a little bit of a gentle curve. The other thing I like to do is I like to mix solids with prints in improv piecing. And it gives it a nice texture. So let me flip this over the right way. I had it upside down. But I was attempting to make something that looked like fire. And this is a really big, odd-sized block. I think it is about 15 inches by 10. And this is just not going in the quilt on the design wall, but this was an exercise and practice. Now look at here, my super skinny orange strip. I'm really proud of some of these pieces. That's why this super mini is probably going to either be built on and made a little bit bigger, or it may just live its life as a super mini. So where I started was I grabbed a few pieces that I thought might look good together. And I'm trying to edit the chaos down to only about 3 or 4 colors. Here you can see I used a lot more colors, but I like it better, more minimal. And so I'm going to press these pieces up. I'm going to show you some examples of how to cut it into a small little improv block. I'm going to show you the beginning of making an improv block, maybe in what we would call a log cabin style. I want to use these 3 fabrics. So literally, I start by just making a wonky rectangular-ish center. Now I like this edge because it's already a little wonky, and just take your rotary cutter and make an oddball cut. Then I'm going to take my skinny strip next to the solid and sew them together. I'll show you what it looks like. I'm going to go these 2 sides, and then I'm going to take strip and go top and bottom. Alright, so here are the 2 pieces cut, but I need more. I'm not going to use a ruler. I'm just going to lob off a strip. And wonky is good for improv. But what I am going to do is I'm going to make these sewable. And this is all you're doing, is building up on pieces and then straightening edges and making design decisions on what you want it to look like as you trim off pieces. I want to try to preserve this, but see how it nipped it off up there. So I'm gonna go a little differently than the original, but you still have this wedge-shaped piece. Now I'm gonna sew these on, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Now I'm just gonna take this little leftover piece of jelly roll, and I'm gonna sew it on either side of the trapezoid. Now I want to try to make this 7.5 by 6.5, so I might have to add another fabric for the top and bottom. This looks pretty good. I may go with a solid red. I shall be back and show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, here is my block so far with the added strips. You can see my jelly roll was short, so I added that wedge. Remember when I cut it off at the beginning to add to the row? Never, ever throw anything away. Let's trim it up 7.5 inches long by 6.5 wide, and I'll show you what it looks like on the design wall. Here is my block. So you're going to see, wow, it really cut off a lot. Tip on doing improv: make the pieces larger and then trim them down. And I like how the orange, even though it's subtle and you can't quite see it, here's a better shot with the light close. And the oranges really make a pop of color. So cut them large, make it all really misshapen. You can change the shapes and designs by wonky cutting and even adjusting your strips to be not really straight. Make them crooked and offset wide to skinny seam allowances and trim your seams. So let's put this with its family down in the red. And there we go. collection of my modern, oh yeah, there's my antique photos and my bunting, but the beginnings of ideas of my modern row quilt. And the next time we'll talk about more about curves, because there's a little bit more involved in that. So in the meantime, I hope today's video inspired you to create something, maybe to try improv. And quilt on, everyone.